As of just after 2 p.m. on Monday, Korea Standard Time, the U.S. and China are taking a break from their trade war, following last month's summit between their two leaders in South Korea's port city of Busan. And over in the States, the U.S. Senate has passed a deal designed to end the country's longest shutdown on record, which now leaves the amended package in front of the House before President Donald Trump can add his signature. Meanwhile, back here, South Korea is gearing up to host over 550,000 students this Thursday, who will be taking the college entrance exam known as the Suneung. And test papers have now been delivered to test centers under heavy security until the day of the exam. The long-awaited truce in the prolonged trade war between the U.S. and China took effect today. And the move follows the summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping held in South Korea's Busan city 2 weeks ago. Our Song Yoo-jin starts us off.
The heated trade tensions between the world's two largest economies appear to be entering a temporary cooling phase. Starting Monday, the United States has halved its fentanyl-related tariffs on Chinese imports from 20% to 10%. President Donald Trump made the announcement aboard Air Force One following his October summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Busan. The agreement finalized the framework set by negotiators in Kuala Lumpur just days before that high-stakes meeting.
I put a 20% tariff on China because of the fentanyl coming in, which is a big tariff. And based on his statements today, I reduced it by 10%, so it's 10% instead of 20% effective immediately. I believe he's going to work very hard to stop the death that's coming in.
With this, the overall U.S. tariff rate on Chinese goods will fall to roughly 47% from 57%. In return, Beijing has suspended its new export controls on rare earths for 1 year, critical materials used in electric vehicles, smartphones, and military hardware. It has also suspended retaliatory tariffs on U.S. agricultural products, including soybeans and pork, in response to Washington's fentanyl-related measures. In addition, the two sides have extended their mutual reciprocal tariff suspension for another year, which was due to expire this month.
The main consensus reached during the economic and trade consultations in Kuala Lumpur between China and the United States pertains to the U.S. Section 301 probe measures against China's maritime, logistics, and shipbuilding industries, as well as the extension of the suspension period for reciprocal tariffs.
This has brought good news for South Korea as well. On Monday, China's Commerce Ministry announced a 1-year suspension of sanctions on 5 U.S.-based subsidiaries of Hanwha Ocean. Last month, the ministry had barred Chinese organizations and individuals from doing business with these companies, accusing them of supporting the U.S. government's Section 301 probe into China. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
In Washington, D.C., the Senate took a first step to end the prolonged government shutdown as a group of moderate Democrats on Sunday crossed the party lines to push forward a plan to restore federal services. But conversations around healthcare subsidies are expected to continue. Our Suneung has the latest.
The United States is moving closer to ending its longest ever government shutdown as lawmakers backed a compromise plan to restore federal services. On Sunday, the U.S. Senate advanced a short-term funding bill to reopen most federal operations through the end of January in a vote of 60 to 40, with 8 Democrats joining Republicans.
On this vote, the yeas are 60 and the nays are 40. 3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn, having voted in the affirmative. The motion upon reconsideration is agreed to.
The bill would restore standard operations across a wide range of federal agencies. This includes the processing of passports, federal court schedules, national parks and museums, small business administration loans, and regulatory inspections. Civilian staff at the Department of War and the Transportation Security Administration would return to regular pay status. Back pay for all furloughed federal workers would resume once the measure is enacted. However, the plan does not include an extension of Affordable Care Act premium subsidies, which Democrats have been fighting for. They argue that ending the subsidies would raise insurance costs for millions of Americans. A separate vote on the healthcare issue is expected in December. The federal shutdown is now in its 40th day, following the lapse in funding at the start of the fiscal year on October 1st. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has warned that the economic impact is worsening as federal procurement and contracting remain suspended. The short-term government funding bill now requires debate and passage in Congress before it can be sent to President Trump for signature. If enacted, the government would reopen temporarily with the next funding deadline on January 30th. Suneung, Arirang News.
South Korea and Cambodia have formally launched a bilateral joint task force aimed at responding to online scam operations and other transnational crimes. On Monday, acting Korean Police Commissioner General Yoo Jae-sung and his Cambodian counterpart Sutet signed a memorandum of understanding in Phnom Penh. The task force will operate inside the Cambodian National Police with officers from both countries working together from incident reporting to investigation, rescue, and repatriation. The group was launched during Foreign Minister Do Hyun's trip to Cambodia. He paid a courtesy call on Prime Minister Hun Manet, who said Cambodia is making nationwide efforts to dismantle scam networks. Jo also held talks with Foreign Minister Bloc, agreeing to expand cooperation ahead of the 30th anniversary of diplomatic ties. A North Korea-backed hacker group has launched a new form of cyber attack that infiltrates the victims' smartphones and PCs, and not only steals personal information but also remotely controls personal devices. Our Ian-jin has the details.
Kang-in Security Center, a South Korean cybersecurity institute, released a report on Monday to say that a North Korean-backed hacker group has carried out a destructive cyber attack that remotely controlled Android smartphones and PCs to not only steal personal information, but also completely wipe key documents. The distribution of malware through a messenger platform impersonating trusted acquaintances is a method that has been analyzed to be typical of North Korean cyber attacks. But according to the threat analysis report, this latest incident reveals a new, unprecedented attack technique. The malware infiltrating the victims' smartphones or PCs contained webcam and microphone control features, suggesting that the attackers could have monitored the victims' activities in real time. Using Google's location services, the hackers confirmed when the victims were away from their desks at home or office, then executed a remote wipe command on Android personal devices, deleting all stored data. The report explained that the remote reset halted normal device operations, temporarily blocking notification and message alerts, which effectively cut off the account owner's awareness channels, thereby delaying detection and response. This demonstrates tactical maturity, marking the development of what is called Advanced Persistent Threats, or APTs. The Cybersecurity Institute advised smart device users to actively practice personal data security measures, such as enabling two-step authentication, avoiding saving passwords automatically in browsers, and turning off PCs when not in use. Further, it emphasized the importance of device manufacturers strengthening multi-factor authentication systems. Ian-jin, Arirang News.
This Thursday, students in South Korea take the annual college entrance exam Suneung, a high-stakes 8-hour series of exams defined by immense personal and national pressure. To ensure every student has an equal and quiet environment to perform their best, the entire nation is once again pausing, implementing sweeping measures to control traffic and even ground flights. Our Kim Do-in reports.
These packages are among the most heavily protected parcels in the nation. They contain the test papers for the Suneung, or the College Scholastic Ability Test, which are being distributed to 85 test districts. The papers are being transported under heavy security and will be stored at secure locations until the exam this Thursday. This year, 554,174 students are registered to take the test at 1,310 centers nationwide. The Education Ministry says it is working with teachers on site to ensure a smooth process over the final 3 days.
For the remaining 3 days, we will meticulously check to ensure there are no disruptions to the exam. The Education Ministry will do its best, together with the teachers, preparing on site.
Nationwide support measures will be in place this Thursday to ensure students can take the exam without disruption. The exam runs from 8:40 a.m. to 5:45 p.m. To prevent traffic congestion, the government has requested public offices and businesses to delay their start times until 10 a.m. During the peak student commute from 6 a.m. to 8:10 a.m., subway services in the Seoul metropolitan area will be expanded. Scenes like this, test takers getting out of a police car will not be a surprise, as police will also provide emergency escorts for students running late to ensure they arrive on time. Additionally, private vehicle access will be prohibited within 200 meters of test site entrances, requiring students to walk the remaining distance. Strict noise control measures will be enforced. The drivers of buses and trains near exam sites are asked to slow down and avoid using horns, while construction and public events are requested to minimize noise. These measures will peak during the 25-minute English listening test starting at 1:10 p.m. During this window, all aircraft takeoffs and landings nationwide will be suspended, and all military exercises, including artillery fire and tank movements, will be halted. These nationwide efforts underscore a society pausing in support of the test takers, who are also mostly teens, reflecting the same hopes and fervent prayers of parents nationwide as they try to reach their full potential. 김도현, Arirang News.
South Korea's exports reached a record high in the third quarter, driven by strong semiconductor exports amid a super cycle in the chip industry, prompted by an AI boom. Moon Ji-young reports.
Exports expanded during the July to September period, marking a 6.5% increase from the same period last year to reach $185 billion. According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Monday, this expansion marks the largest quarterly export figure since the ministry began compiling relevant data in 2010. The growth also marks the second consecutive quarter of year-on-year growth, following a 2.1% rise in the second quarter. In addition, the number of exporting firms grew 4.5% year-on-year to nearly 70,000. The ministry explained that although unresolved South Korea-U.S. tariff negotiations could have weighed on exports through the third quarter, strong semiconductor shipments led the overall export growth. By type of goods, exports of capital goods led by semiconductors increased by over 11%, while consumer goods led by automobiles rose nearly 5%, ending 4 consecutive quarters of decline. By company size, SME exports surged nearly 12%, led by increases in consumer and capital goods. Mid-sized firms also posted strong results, with exports growing 7%, primarily in capital goods and raw materials. And large enterprises saw an over 5% rise in exports driven by capital goods. The ministry noted that increased semiconductor exports were the main driver for large firms, while growth in semiconductor parts and equipment boosted medium-sized companies' exports. While automobile exports to the U.S. and China fell, shipments to Europe increased, driven by robust demand for electric vehicles. Total imports saw a modest rise of 1.5%, amounting to $162.4 billion. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
A presidential commission approved a goal on Monday to reduce South Korea's greenhouse gas emissions by 53% to 61% from 2018 levels within the next decade, following an agreement between the government and the ruling party on gas reduction targets. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin has this report.
The government and ruling Democratic Party have reached a consensus on South Korea's 2035 greenhouse gas reduction targets. A high-level policy consultation meeting on Sunday was attended by Prime Minister Kim Min-seok, leader of Democratic Party Jung Cheong-rae, and Presidential Chief of Staff Kang In-sik. At the meeting, the target for reducing South Korea's greenhouse gas emission under its 2035 nationally determined contribution to the Paris Agreement was set at the 53% to 61% range.
For a sustainable future, Reducing national greenhouse gas emissions is a task that can no longer be postponed.
The government had presented two final candidate plans for reducing greenhouse gas emissions last week by either 50 to 60% or 53 to 60%, compared to 2018 levels by 2035, replacing the current target of a 40% reduction by 2030. Through this meeting, the upper limit has been raised by 1 percentage point, a move interpreted as showing the government's stronger commitment to reducing carbon emissions. Civil society groups had called for a 65% reduction, while industry representatives proposed a 48% reduction. The government and ruling party pledged to seek additional support to ease the burden on industries through measures such as the KGX Green Transition Strategy to support Korean companies in transitioning to decarbonized industries and to foster the growth of a greener society. The final target range will be approved by the Presidential Commission on Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth and the Cabinet this week, before submission to the UN next week. Other items on the agenda included tax relief measures aimed at sustaining the recent rise in the Kospi stock index. The initial government proposal was to impose a top tax rate of 35% on dividend income exceeding 300 million won, or around $206,000. However, the ruling party called for lowering the top tax rate to 25% in an effort to strengthen shareholder value and reduce the tax burden for income earned from stock dividends. So the ruling bloc is considering a revised plan. Though the two sides now seem to have settled on a 25% top tax rate, the final rate will be fixed through discussions at the upcoming regular session of the National Assembly. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Korean culture isn't just about K-pop anymore. From literature to design, it's gaining global attention. Now, in that spirit, Korea's Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism hosted a festival to celebrate those who are sharing Korean culture with the world. Pyongyang was there.
Held at the CKL stage in central Seoul, the K-Creators Awards kicked off the 2025 K-Wave Festival and honored global influencers, honorary reporters, and winners of the Talk Korea contest who have promoted Korea's culture in unique ways. Streamed live on KoreaNet's official YouTube channel, the event opened with a dynamic taekwondo performance by junior K-Tigers, followed by remarks from a Culture Ministry representative.
In 2025, fueled by the global popularity of K-pop Demon Hunters, interest in Korean lifestyle, from food and fashion to traditional houses and medicine, is spreading worldwide. This growing closeness between Korea and the world is made possible by the passion and dedication of those who share and celebrate Korean culture.
Awards were presented to 15 individuals from around the world, recognizing their efforts to share Korean stories beyond just pop music.
Of course, I'm happy and feel proud of myself because this is my first time for me, and it keeps reminding for me to keep growing.
In this opportunity to create content about this topic, for me, it's really amazing for this connect with these people around the world.
And I think Korean literature is a hidden gem, so I want to introduce people to it and share my passion. And actually, I think Middle Eastern countries can learn from Korea's experience because they have some similarities.
After the ceremony, winners embarked on a 9-day cultural tour, exploring Seoul's landmarks and experiencing the depth of Korean heritage firsthand. The Culture Ministry says it hopes that events like this will help Korea share its creativity with the world, not just through K-pop, but through every facet of its culture. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
It is time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. For that, we have our sports editor, Paul Nitze, joining us in the studio. Welcome back, Paul.
Thank you. Hello.
So I do have to say some important contributions in the field of football were made by South Korean stars in Europe over the weekend. Do tell us more.
Yes, goals and assists for some members of the national team.
Right.
In France, Kang-in marked his 100th appearance for PSG with a match-winning assist for Paris Saint-Germain in a 3-2 win over Lyon on Sunday. He set up João Neves for the winning goal in the 95th minute. It was his first assist of the season from 10 league appearances overall. PSG sit top, 2 points clear of Marseille and Lyon after 12 matches played. Meanwhile, in Belgium, Oh Hyung-gyu scored for the third game running, helping Genk draw 1-1 away to Ghent. O scored the game's opener on 24 minutes, but also scored in the Europa League away to Braga in Portugal in a 4-3 win last Thursday, and got the winner away to Westerlo last Sunday. It bodes well for the national team, with both players involved for the upcoming friendlies with Bolivia and Ghana.
Right, and now to baseball. South Korea's national team swept its 2-game exhibition series against the Czech Republic, right?
It did, which again bodes well ahead of the World Baseball Classic next year. At Gochok Sky Dome in Seoul on Sunday, Korea exploded for 17 hits in a powerful 11-1 victory in Game 2. After a slow start, the Korean hitters broke the game open in the later innings, capitalizing on Czech pitching mistakes. Some key performances included Moon Hyun-bin, who went 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs, and Kim Sung-yoon, who added 2 hits and an RBI. Lee Jae-won, meanwhile, hit a 2-run homer in the top of the 9th inning. The first match, played the day before, ended 3-0 to South Korea, a game that yielded just 5 hits. Up next is a 2-game series with Japan in Tokyo on November 15th and 16th. The World Baseball Classic is slated for March next year.
Definitely something to look forward to. Now, moving on to esports, another victory for South Korea's T1.
Yeah, making history by clinching its 3rd straight League of Legends world title on Sunday. In an all-Korean final held in Chengdu in China, the team, led by legendary captain Lee Sang-hyuk, known as Faker, defeated KT Rolster in a tight match 3-2. Sunday's win also marks T1's 6th World Championship victory overall since 2013. No team has won more world titles than T1.
Right. And finally, to under-17 football World Cup, South Korea secured a place in the knockout rounds. What can you tell us?
Right, so they are through, still with 1 game still to play in the group. They've earned 4 points so far. They got a 2-1 win over Mexico and then a 0-0 draw with Switzerland. Now, Korea will finish in at least 3rd place, which means that regardless of their result with the Ivory Coast tonight, they are through to the round of 32. Who they'll play next, of course, depends on what their final position will be in the group. Now, Ivory Coast are already out following 2 losses, and South Korea have reached the knockout stages of this World Cup for the first time since the 2019 edition.
Well, fingers crossed. Paul, thanks for coming in as always.
Thank you.
It seems like a sudden cold snap comes around every Monday. This morning in Seoul, the temperature dropped to 5.4 degrees Celsius, and the wind made it feel even colder at 3.3 degrees. Even in the middle of the day, the temperature didn't rise significantly. This winter-like cold won't last long. From tomorrow afternoon, the cold will gradually ease off a bit, and from Wednesday, we'll return to the usual temperature for this time of year. However, for the time being, the temperature difference between morning and day and between day and night will widen. Please take good care of your health. Tomorrow morning will start cold at 3 degrees in Seoul, Daejeon, and Gyeongju, and at -1 degree in Chuncheon. Highs will top out at 14 to 18 degrees all over the country. On Thursday, the day of the college entrance exam, mild temperatures will be seen under clear skies. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.